If you've been bitten in a zombie apocalypse and you want to curb that cannibal appetite, have some man egg. There was a viewer, a commenter. Someone left me a comment saying I should check this guy out. His name is Dr. Bob, and he does some SCP animations. So I found one of his videos. I said, let's check this shit out. That's what we're going to react to today, as you can see. Dr. Bob presents SCP 1657 Man Egg. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be, but it sounds interesting. I don't know if I want to know what that's supposed to be.
Raid on a seemingly ordinary house when the SCP Foundation conducted their raid on a seemingly ordinary house in Tennessee, none of the recovery team expected to unearth something so horrifically bizarre. Their objective had been simple, straightforward, and standard: gain access to the property and detain the owner, who was known to be a high-ranking member of Redacted, an anomalous group of interest the Foundation were looking into. What the recovery team found, once the battering ram had smashed the front door out of its frame, baffled even the foremost experts in the anomalous. The house itself, while it might have looked unassuming from the outside, was anything but normal. Putrid smells filled the air, causing Foundation agents to gag as their nostrils were assaulted by the stench. One operative, who had been the first to step inside, doubled over and began heaving at the smell of rotting food that poured through the house.
Ugh.
The operative was rushed outside, where he was promptly sick in his tactical helmet.
Ugh.
Once they had protected their faces with respirators, KN95 masks, fabric torn into makeshift bandanas, and anything else they could quickly get their hands on, the Foundation agents proceeded inside. Trash crunched and shuffled under each footfall. The floor was covered with discarded bottles, food wrappers, newspapers, and broken glass. Flashlight beams illuminated the walls covered in grime and dust. Mold had formed in the upper corners of the ceilings, draped with inhabited cobwebs. Everyone was on high alert, prepared just in case Redacted, their target, appeared from behind a corner brandishing a gun or a knife to...
Again, why is his name Man Egg?
defend his domicile. After all, he was active within a known group of interest. He also had the added benefit of Tennessee's stand your ground laws, permitting him to use deadly force in self-defense while within his home, a place.
So this one's based in, okay.
He had a right to be.
Okay.
There were little signs of life in the house, beyond the shuffling of garbage caused by scuttering rats and foraging opossums. The elusive target must have skipped town before the recovery team could get to foraging opossums. The elusive target.
Man, no wonder that monkey looks like that, yo. He's like, bro, you gotta get me out of here. He's like, bro, the smell. I can't take it. Let me get, bro, you gotta get me out of here. You gotta save me. I almost feel sorry for the little guy. I do feel sorry for it.
Must have skipped town before the recovery team could get to him. He had either gotten paranoid that he was due a visit from the SCP Foundation and fled, or somehow tipped off that a team was being sent to bring him in. He didn't work alone. There were other members of Redacted who could have warned him. The Foundation would soon be tracking down his list of known associates within the group of interest and bringing them in for questioning.
Okay.
Still, there was no reason not to be thorough. Even if he wasn't hiding somewhere in the house, Redacted might have inadvertently left some clue as to where he was heading. The recovery team made a sweep of the...
Imagine having to go through all of that filth just to like look for like clues and any information where this guy might be.
The entire house, going room to room, each as filthy as the last, wading through ankle-deep refuse and litter. There was no way a person could live like this. Some of the team began to suspect that this was a secondary location used solely for Redacted's anomalous activities, and that the target must have lived somewhere else.
What activities are we talking about? The fuck?
Then again, maybe he liked the filth. Within minutes, the building was declared secure.
What was you doing that little thing, bro? It didn't look right.
And the recovery team made a radio check-in with the operations center at Site 23. They informed them that the chicken had flown the coop. Their target was nowhere to be found. Naturally, this was not an update the operational commander had been hoping to hear. In the effort of making sure the raid wasn't a complete waste of Foundation resources, the commander instructed the team to recover anything that could qualify as evidence of anomalous activity. Once the command came over the radio, some of the recovery teams sarcastically joked that the most anomalous thing about the house was just how gross it was. They were, it turned out, far from right. Scouring the house, the disgruntled Foundation agents donned thick rubber gloves and began begrudgingly sifting through the garbage surrounding them. It would take hours, if not days, to clear it all. It would be even longer if they had to check every crushed soda can and scrap of uneaten, moldy, maggot-infested food. The team split into smaller groups, each tackling a different area of the house. No one was eager to be the ones responsible for clearing the kitchen, which more closely resembled the site of a deadly biohazard than a sanitary environment for preparing meals. As they worked, the agents tried to bring levity with humor, joking that the target was clearly a single man, or that maybe they'd find him buried under one of the numerous piles of garbage. What little levity was offered by the bantering quickly dissipated the moment an agent in the kitchen discovered something even more stomach-turning than the smell. Several dark red-brown stains, almost like rust, were dried into the kitchen countertops. There were more stains on appliances, frying pans left unwashed in the sink, and on the outer door of the refrigerator. At first, it seemed indistinguishable from the dirt and grime that was smeared throughout other parts of the house. It was only when one of the agents in the kitchen caught a distinctly coppery scent permeating through his KN95 mask. Immediately, they were able to place the vaguely familiar reddish-brown coloration. It was dried blood.
I'm sure. What is this SCP's power? I forgot to do my due diligence at the very beginning, my bad. SCP 1657. Let's see. All instances of SCP-1657 are to be kept in frozen storage at Site-23. Testing of these objects, including the hatching of SCP-1657, instances require approval from at least 3 Level 3 personnel. Damn. All SCP-1650 instances are to be kept in separate humanoid containment chambers for the duration of their lives. But there's multiple ones? A general feeding schedule has been created for all SCP-1657. Let's see. However, if it appears that any given instance requires a different diet or schedule, Dr. Armstrong is to be contacted and consulted. What the hell is this thing? Refers to a collection of 74 eggs ranging between 5 centimeters and 30 centimeters in length. They are, let's see, normally white in coloration, though. Bro, remember how the price in eggs recently went up? Shit's crazy. Now here we are talking about anyway. They're normally white in coloration, though occasionally pink and red in colored eyes. Okay, well, eggs will also be found. 1657 can be indefinitely kept at temperatures between 0 degrees Celsius and 15 degrees Celsius. If these eggs are kept in conditions of a certain temperature and humidity, they will hatch and yield specimens of SCP-1657. See document 1657 Alpha for more specific details on the incubation of these eggs. So it's like, Eggman is one of these eggs that hatched then?
Immediately, the recovery team's forensic expert was called into the kitchen, gathering up samples of the blood from various surfaces. As they took a closer look at the refrigerator, someone suggested opening it in case the source of the bloodstains had been left inside. Bracing themselves, the agents gathered around, some half expecting to find the eviscerated remains of their elusive target redacted behind the fridge door. But as it swung open, they discovered something far stranger. Inside, the refrigerator was almost bare, a stark contrast to the cluttered, filthy house around it. The only items the agents found in the fridge were 6 individual containers, each with 15 eggs inside. In total, there were 90 of them, and at first glance, these appeared to be ordinary supermarket chicken eggs. But on closer inspection, they seemed to be somewhat unusual. For one, while most of the eggs' shells had a white color to them, some were pink, others were red. Regrouping outside at their Foundation transport, the recovery team established a rudimentary examination lab to take a closer look at the extraordinary eggs. In a review of the case report compiled about this particular raid, the operational commander at Site 23 has noted
Did the eggs not smell as bad as the place inside or where they came from?
their skepticism. It was speculated that the recovery team conducted an examination at the temporary lab as an excuse to get away from the house and its overpowering smells. The validity of this claim remains undetermined. What is known is that closer examination of the eggs revealed enough abnormalities for the entire contents of Redacted's refrigerator to be remanded into Foundation possession, with the eggs themselves being considered anomalous contraband. When several of the eggs were removed from the fridge for examination, spectral scans showed each one was fertilized. Most eggs bought from supermarkets, especially chicken eggs, are unfertilized, making them safe for human consumption. The eggs the recovery team had found were all carrying embryos, and as they would soon find out, these weren't eggs from a chicken, or any other kind of bird for that matter. Within half an hour of examination, the eggs were beginning to show signs of movement. Cracks began suddenly forming on their discolored shells as something inside began to stir. The recovery team immediately went into a state of panic, drawing sidearms and preparing for an incursion with an unknown anomaly. One of the eggs split, something protruding through the membrane beneath the shell and flexing in the air. Then another similar protrusion appeared, pushing outwards, breaking more of the shell, before being joined by a third. The Foundation agents witnessing this stared in disbelief at the appendages breaking free from their confines. They looked like tiny arms, tiny human arms. Within moments, the creature inside had broken enough of the egg to allow it and the fluids inside to spill over the examination table. The tiny life form inflated and deflated as it took its first gasps of air. It looked like a human fetus, yet somehow able to survive in the open. Additionally, it appeared to have some kind of deformity, an extra arm. This was not shared by the next of the creatures to hatch from its egg. This second one seemed to have an additional set of tiny lungs growing on its back. Given how long the eggs had been out of the fridge for examination, the recovery team quickly realized that these creatures needed to be incubated at low temperatures in order to prevent them from hatching. Hurriedly, the remainder of the eggs were gathered up and brought to Site 23 in the back of a refrigerated truck. The remaining 87 anomalous eggs, later reduced to 74 following experimentation, were cataloged by the SCP Foundation. Their designation was SCP-1657. Each egg seemed to vary slightly, not uncommon among the eggs of various avian and reptile species. However, the differences between each instance of SCP-1657, be it in size or coloration, were considerably more noticeable. The shell colors, as mentioned, ranged from white to pink and red, and could measure as small as 5 centimeters in length to as long as a huge 30 centimeters.
So do the pink ones have certain do the pinker ones have certain characteristics, and like the red ones have certain characteristics, or is it like, because it says they vary in color from white to red? So if it's in gradient, is it like the redder it is, the more aggressive it is? Or like maybe the redder it is, I don't know, something?
Foundation anthropology experts and leading minds in the field of anomalous evolutions theorized that the creatures that birthed these eggs must similarly vary in size, allowing for such potentially large progeny. Speaking of these creatures, the initial instances accidentally hatched by the recovery team were terminated prior to SCP-1657 being delivered to the Foundation. The justification given by Command was that the Foundation had no knowledge of the basic needs of these entities, or whether they posed any threat to personnel. Autopsies conducted on the 3 newborn specimens and experimentation involving other hatchlings in controlled environments have since indicated that they would not have been a significant danger to the recovery team. as was accidentally discovered by the agents who found SCP-1657. These entities, referred to as SCP-1657-A, hatch from the eggs when they are removed from a low-temperature environment. Anything between 0 to 10 degrees Celsius is considered
I thought it was 15.
an optimal temperature to avoid unwanted hatching. 11 to 15 degrees Celsius is still safe and will not trigger the birth of an SCP-1657-A instance. However, the temperature control staff at Site-23's frozen storage unit are instructed to never allow containers holding SCP-1657 to exceed the maximum of 15 degrees. Altering the conditions that the eggs are kept in particular changes to temperature and humidity levels, is likely to cause a hatching and yield an instance of SCP-1657-A. Any tests involving these eggs, including the hatching of new SCP-1657-A specimens, is prohibited unless approval is granted by at least 3 members of personnel with Level 3 clearance.
Okay.
With 3 specimens dead on arrival, all instances of SCP-1657 were handed over to a Foundation research team. In order to further examine the biological functions and behavior of SCP-1657-A, an initial control group of 6 eggs were removed from cold storage and allowed to hatch. Like the creatures that had emerged from the eggs on site, these—
Why 6 of them? Why not just like one of them? It's your first go. Let's see what one of them see what one of them does. Just and then you still have the other 86.
latest entities closely resembled premature humans.
74, 73?
They continued to maintain this resemblance as they matured, albeit at a considerably accelerated rate. Each one reached maturity within 13 days of hatching. SCP-1657-A appeared to be closely related to humans, retaining the familiar humanoid shape and most of the same internal organs. However, how close the resemblance stayed appeared to fluctuate wildly between specimens. Some appeared closer to Homo sapiens than others, with many exhibiting the same deformities as the initial 3 that were hatched by accident. The most notable physical difference was that each instance of SCP-1657-A seemed to lack any hair, nails, and teeth. Closer post-mortem analysis of specimens have confirmed what many researchers suspected, that SCP-1657-A instances' bodies have no natural way of producing keratin, unlike human beings. Further study of the creatures seemed at one point to have been hindered by a sudden discovery made by a junior researcher about 2.5 weeks after the specimens hatched. Sent to perform a bi-hourly check on the control group of SCP-1657-A specimens that were all being held in individual secure observation pens, the researcher found that all 6 entities had died in their enclosures. Immediate efforts were made to resuscitate the creatures. However, this endeavor was ultimately unsuccessful. Autopsies carried out on the 6 SCP—
I was not ready for that. like maybe some paddles and clear, something like that. But what was that?
1657-A's failed to establish a conclusive cause of death for all specimens. Researchers attributed their sudden expiry to a potential issue with the creature's diet, a lack of enrichment in the observation enclosures, or possibly an unknown illness spreading among the specimens. These were all variables that were accounted for during testing that was conducted with a new control group. 7 more of the SCP-1657 eggs were released from storage and were hatched into a new observational group. This time, they would be hatched incrementally, 2 at a time rather than all at once, with 1 spare. Once birthed, each one was placed in a clean pen, permitted for daily enrichment time on the outer grounds of Site-23, and given a synthetic probiotic supplement to ensure dietary health. Much like the prior deceased control group, these new 7 instances grew to maturity in almost 2 weeks. During this time, their behavior was closely examined by SCP Foundation researchers. The species themselves became referred to as Homo sine sapientia by one researcher who had hastily attempted a rough Latin translation using Google Translate. This was largely due to the fact that their behavior indicated a lack of sapience without any capacity for conscious thought. Each new—
What if they just what if they were out in the environment? Like, what would they—
instance of SCP-1657-A was unable to communicate and could not be taught to converse in any known human language.
Like, have they tried any element, like base experiments. I wonder, like what were their where they were contained? What kind of an environment was the content was it being contained in? And like, what happened if you introduce other like natural environment, like our natural environments to it?
Verbal or otherwise. No recorded instances exhibited anything that would constitute violent behavior, with all specimens appearing to be largely docile and compliant. They startled easily, though, and it was noted during interactions with personnel that they appeared fearful of other living organisms. Those specimens that
What if they only appear fearful because they don't like how you look? But if that cage wasn't there and they could actually, get to you, like what if that fearful look was just to like draw you in so they could kill you easily? Like, bam, done. Didn't even see it coming.
hatched with the adequate sensory organs would use them to distance itself from other beings, staying as far away as possible at all times. SCP-1657-A instances born without sensory organs would react negatively to direct touch, never with aggression, but instead retreating away with haste. When the creatures were left alone in a soothing environment for a long enough period of time, they would lay further SCP-1657 eggs. The Foundation has opted to keep the remainder of the original stash recovered in Tennessee in storage, only using SCP-1657 laid by recorded SCP-1657-A specimens for hatching and further study. The total number of remaining eggs from Redacted's house is never to exceed 74. Over the course of testing, the creatures have exhibited signs that they possess a form of collective memory. They appear to pass certain experiences, usually pertaining to their own survival and preservation, onto those that are yet to be hatched. 2 weeks after being born, the first of the new control group, designated as SCP-1657-A-07, was placed in a basic endurance course to test its physicality. During this time, thanks to an unrelated experiment involving SCP-457 taking place nearby, a fire broke out, resulting in an emergency evacuation. Once Site-23's fire suppressant systems had activated and maintenance crews were able to verify that the area was safe, researchers returned to find SCP-1657-A-07 had perished in the blaze. However, reviewing security footage of the incident revealed that the creature hadn't been trapped by the fire, but had actively approached it. Surveillance cameras recorded it moving towards the flames and inspecting them with curiosity. It clearly lacked the relevant survival instincts or perhaps even the sensory awareness to be deterred by the fire's intense heat. The specimen subsequently died, but this footage prompted researchers to look further into the survival instincts of future SCP-1657-A specimens. Anomalous evolution experts reasoned that no species, even an anomalous one, could survive without a natural sense to preserve itself from danger. So, new SCP-1657-A instances were exposed to similar dangerous stimuli after reaching maturity. When presented with fire, newly born SCP-1657-A-09 and SCP-1657-A-10 showed a clear aversion to the flames and heat that didn't match the behavior exhibited by their deceased predecessor, SCP-1657-A-07. This was how researchers were able to determine the collective memory of SCP-1657-A. New specimens all...
So it's a collective... So they all learn from each other's experiences?
Almost inherited an instinctive knowledge of dangers faced by instances that hatched before they did.
So it's only the ones that were hatched before them. So all the ones that are still in other eggs, all in general, are learning from the experiences of those that are hatching around them. So that means the 74 that's in the that are keeping contained. Like I know it's not the original 74 because it just says the number is never to exceed 74. There's got to be like an original 10 or whatever, and a certain number of those have to be like originals that were never hatched from after they got them from the refrigerator. So that means if those ever hatch, and they're gonna have the experiences of all the millions, possible millions, of the eggs that hatched before them. So eventually, like one of those could be like, or shit, it doesn't even have to go to be one of those. It could, after a certain amount of time, these little egg things are going to be as intelligent, or if not more intelligent, as us, and then like their offspring will only learn from maybe not as intelligent or whatever, but experience. Like I guess I would also work with intelligence, but anyway, yeah, until it's better than us eventually over time. That's crazy. That's crazy. What if it tries to take over?
The deaths of the original 6 specimens would remain a mystery for only a short while, as it was soon determined exactly why all of the control group expired simultaneously. 17 days after it was born, during which time SCP-1657-A-07 perished in the aforementioned fire, SCP-1657-A-08 also died from indeterminate causes. Given that the other specimen hatched at the same time as number 8 had already died, the pattern wasn't initially noticed. That was until the subsequent pair, the now naturally fire-averse SCP-1657-A-09 and SCP-1657-A-10 both died on the same day. This took place exactly 17 days.
So, if they're born the same time, they die the same time, no matter what happens to the other one, I wonder? So let's say the last one's hatched, have all the experiences of all the other ones. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter how many there are, because if you kill one of them, if you manage to succeed and kill one of them, then, well, before it lays another egg, then yeah, you might win.
After they had hatched, leading Foundation researchers to conclude this was the average natural lifespan of an SCP-1657-A specimen. Since then, only one other specimen has expired prematurely, SCP-1657-A.
Okay, so they're only dying at the same time because they were born at the same time. It's not like some type of connection. Like one of them gets hurt and dies, and then the other one like telepathically dies or whatever.
A-12 was killed during a frantic altercation with SCP-1657-A-13 as a result of researchers attempting to observe how 2 instances of SCP-1657-A would naturally interact with each other. All future instances of SCP-1657-A are to be contained in separate humanoid containment chambers. This is to avoid any potential accidental violent encounters or adverse socialization issues during their maturing phase.
They also attack each other.
The initial site where the collection of SCP-1657 eggs were recovered was eventually cleared. A full forensic analysis of the building.
Survival of the fittest, then. So if there's a bunch of them that hatch, and they've all got experiences of several others that came before them, if they run into each other, they'll attack each other. And so, but if you run into that last one and you can't kill it because it's got all those other experiences and survival of the fittest on its side, will it win?
Was able to determine that the dried blood found in redacted sink was a genetic match to instances of SCP-1657-A. At present, it is unknown where these specimens were housed, but it is suspected they may have been used to lay the eggs found in the refrigerator. It is believed by Foundation agents investigating Group of Interest Redacted's activity that they may have been attempting to establish some kind of distribution operation for SCP-1657 eggs. Packaging discovered at the site seems to indicate these anomalous eggs may have been specifically bioengineered for this purpose, possibly as an alternative to chicken eggs. This packaging and accompanying flyers have been submitted as evidence in this case, with one reading as follows. Need more punch to your breakfast. Grocery store eggs not working for you. Wish you could have a masculine omelet for once in your miserable life. Then buy the man egg. Man egg will make you manly. Ever hear of you are what you eat? Well, we at Redacted believe it's 100% true. That's why we make our eggs out of real humans. So what are you waiting for? Go scramble and eat the man egg. Warning: keep eggs refrigerated whenever they are not being directly used for cooking. Do not leave eggs outside of a cold environment for more than half an hour at a time. If anything emerges from your man egg, please call redacted. The promotional material includes a disclaimer that states no actual humans are used in the making of SCP-1657. According to the flyers recovered at the site, a general human substitute is used. This material has also been found to include a symbol connected.
Human substitute? What exactly a human substitute are you talking about? Are you talking about what I think you're talking about?
With known group of interest, creations of men. Foundation agents are still looking into any potential connection between the creation and distribution of SCP-1657 and the group's controversial Genesis 127 project. Further information on creations of men and the Genesis 127 project are highly classified by the SCP Foundation. A reminder has been issued to all breakroom kitchen staff to not use SCP-1657 eggs when cooking personnel breakfasts. Check out the Dr. Bob Patreon and become a junior researcher.
Yeah, that's kind of nasty. So it was all because they were meant to be some type of replacement egg, or not. Well, I guess replacement egg that would quote unquote make you more manly, because the egg had the DNA of human in it. Yeah, that's nasty. Ew. I don't want to. Ew. Hey, I'm sure cannibal. If you want to curve that cannibal appetite, if you've been bitten in a zombie apocalypse, and you want to curve that cannibal appetite, have some man egg.